You're listening to Bullpen Science with Dr. Richard Aplin, the podcast that gives you real health solutions to your real health problems. And now, your visionary host, Dr. Richard Aplin.
Welcome to Class 4 of a special series titled How to Get in Front of Stress. Hi, this is Dr. Richard Aplin with Bullpen Science, and in tonight's class we were winding up the series by talking about the importance of understanding how our emotions actually impact our lives. One of the major topics in tonight's class was this understanding that we typically measure our emotional well-being by the big events in life. But if you think about it, how we recover from the small events in life actually determine the stress impact that these large events have on us. Now, that may sound like a mouthful, and you might want to just sit back and think about that for a moment, but I think you'll see the truth in that. In tonight's class, we were defining the differences between emotions and emotional stress. We were talking about the idea that processes actually precede conditions, whether they're emotional or physical. And the expression of a condition really is a major red flag to alert us to the need to address a process. So we gave some corrective measures, talking about awareness and different kinds of exercise. We typically in our country exercise a reactive system, and we really disregard the importance of the recovery system. Well, tonight's class was to give solutions about how to deal with this in a more well-rounded manner. And when we ended the class, the thing that I left them with was actually something that we started with, and it was penned by Socrates. It says, "There is no illness of the body apart from the mind. The body is wired to heal itself, and the brain operates this self-healing system." Well, enjoy Class 4, and I am so proud of you for making it through all 4 classes, and I look forward to doing more series like this in the future. This is Dr. Richard Aplin for Bullpen Science, and have a great day.
Did you know the average person spends 4 years of his life looking down at his cell phone? Kinda ironic, ain't it? How these touch screens can make us lose touch. But it's no wonder in a world filled with iMacs, iPads, and iPhones, so many eyes, so many selfies, not enough us's and we's. See, technology has made us more selfish and separate than ever. Because while it claims to connect us, connection has gotten no better. And let me express first, Mr. Zuckerberg, not to be rude, but you should reclassify Facebook to what it is, an anti-social network. Because while we may have big friend lists, so many of us are friendless all alone. Because friendships are more broken than the screens on our very phones. We sit at home on our computers measuring self-worth by numbers of followers and likes. Ignoring those who actually love us, it seems we'd rather write an angry post and talk to someone who might actually hug us. Am I bugging? You tell me, because I asked a friend the other day, let's meet up face to face. They said, all right, what time you want to Skype? I responded with OMG, SRS, and then a bunch of SMHs, and realized, what about me? Do I not have the patience to have conversation without abbreviation? This is the generation of media overstimulation. Chats have been reduced to snaps. The news is 140 characters. Videos are 6 seconds at high speed. And you wonder why ADD is on the rise faster than 4G LTE. But get a load of this. Studies show the attention span of the average adult today is 1 second lower than that of a goldfish. So if you're one of the few people or aquatic animals that have yet to click off or close this video, congratulations. Let me finish by saying you do have a choice, yes. But this one, my friends, we cannot autocorrect. We must do it ourselves. Take control or be controlled, make a decision. Me? No longer do I want to spoil a precious moment by recording it with a phone. I'm just gonna keep them. I don't want to take a picture of all my meals anymore. I'm just gonna eat them. I don't want the new app, the new software, or the new update. And if I want to post an old photo, who says I have to wait until Thursday? I'm so tired of performing in the pageantry of vanity and conforming to this accepted form of digital insanity. Call me crazy, but I imagine a world where we smile when we have low batteries. Cause that'll mean we'll be one bar closer to humanity.
Good evening, everyone. My goodness, that's loud. We have 56 minutes and 15 seconds tonight. All right, we're going to make sure that we get done on time. I don't want to be infringing on other people's free time. Tonight, we're going to wind up this whole series, and we're going to be talking about something called emotional health, emotional stressors, emotional stress. But then at the very end of this, I'm going to try to wrap everything together. Now, one of the things, and I'm not sure if you guys have picked up on this, one of the things that I've done through this whole class is I've put little gems in there, just little pieces. All right, like one of them, and you're going to see it again tonight, is that there's no condition that doesn't have a process in front of it. There's a lot of meaning in that. All right, one that I did not get up there, and I was thinking about as I was unpacking tonight, and it was the fact that in the absence of knowledge, there's fear. And I truly believe that what we call healthcare in this country is just fear-based because there is a lack of knowledge. We know how to reduce something down to its smallest component, and that's the reductionist theory of medicine. But we don't understand how the whole thing works together because, like I said in the beginning, we are a system of systems. And to be able to apply our science to that, our science has to appreciate it and understand it. Reductionist science is great for crisis management. It is the best. But it is not the best when you're dealing with these systems. And so I'm hopefully empowering you to take a step back and ask that proverbial question, why? When the doctor says something, you say, why? Why do I have this? Why is this doing what it's doing to me? And what do I need to do about that? One of the things that I started doing with my staff, and I'm teaching other doctors to do this, we live in a culture of people that take so much medication. You know, we talked about it last week. 70% of the population take at least one, 50% of the population take at least two, 20% of the population take 5 or more. And so what we do is we take the medication list when the patients fill out the information, come into our office, and then I go through, this is the reason why they take this is the reason why they take this, and then after we get all of that said and done, then we go, what really is going on here? And this is long before the patient ever shows up. And so when they walk in, we already know what system is messed up. They should know. And then by the end of our first visit, they do know. And then we set out to change the system. Okay? So tonight we're going to be talking about stress. This is a recap. It says stress is the real result. Stress is not what somebody is doing to you. All right? My mother said, you're making my blood pressure go up. Even as a kid, I went, no, I'm not. Yours is going up by itself. So stress is what you are left with. It's the real result of either a real or an imagined event. Your memories can actually produce or cause your body to change its physiology. And if you don't have control of what's going on, you're going to be a victim of whatever your thoughts are. And you don't have to be. You really don't. Now, stress can be controlled through better recovery. Our country is focused on trying to control the reactive side of our system. And that you're going to have very poor results. The one side of the system that you can influence is the recovery side. Because how you react is actually based on how well you recovered to the event prior to that event. And I was driving here tonight. I drive about 300 yards. So I'm driving here tonight and I go, you know what? Have you ever had a situation where you bit someone's head off? And then you go back in your mind and you go, wait a minute, 30 minutes before that, they did something and I didn't bite their head off. Why did I bite their head off this time? Was it really something that they did? And honestly, it's not. It's what you were carrying when that happened. If you can lay it down at the end of that event, then you are fully recovered for the next event. And that's really the trick, right? So, do what?
Not the bag full.
Not the bag full. Well, we'll work on that. But tonight we're going to be talking emotional stress. What are examples of emotional stress? Do what? Dealing with kids. Dealing with adults. Okay. Dealing with driving. Driving on the parkway. Absolutely. I see a lot of people driving on the parkway that are severely under-aroused. All right? And so they're drifting all over the place. And that's a wreck waiting to happen. All right? And then you see the person who is driving that's over-aroused that runs right up behind you and slams on the brakes. That's an over-aroused individual. The last thing you want to be doing is add one more stressor in their life, so just get out of the way. Okay? But honestly, this is what it is life. Everything about life is a stressor. Everything about life, including your memories, including the good things, including the bad things. It's just life. And if you really can grasp that, then you can apply some strategies that are designed to maximize your results to that and how you play with life. Like, for instance, most of us measure our emotional stress by the big events in life. Would you say that's a true statement? You wouldn't say it's true. You read the second sentence. All right. But no, honestly, people think about the big events in life. But what they're missing is this next statement. How you recover from the small events in life determine how you will respond to the big events. We only look at the big events, and we're missing the very thing that we could change about those big events. Look at the small things. That's really what matters. Oh my goodness. You know what? It's obvious that we're really not focused on the right thing when you try to read that vibrating sentence there. This is the one we talked about from last week where it says the second most common prescription drug given in the United States today is an antidepressant. If that is truly the second most common prescription, you know darn well people are not focused on the right thing. They're not. But the problem that we're running into is that everyone feels like they're just a victim. And really, if you're not focused on the right component, you are. But I don't believe we were put on this earth to be victims. And I mean, don't we know in the Bible, what does it say? We're more than conquerors. But why do we act like victims? There's a real problem there. And the problem actually is the science that we are using to try to understand how this system of systems is actually working. We don't have an appropriate science for that. It exists, we just don't use it. The next thing is this. Neuroscience estimates that we process over 3 trillion bits of data each and every day. 3 trillion. So I would say that efficiency is the key. Because if you think about it, if you process 80% correctly, multiply that 20% by 3 trillion, and it compounds as it goes, because everything you carry with you to the next event reduces your ability to respond to that event, which means that's just another brick in your bag. And after a while, the bricks get so heavy, it knocks you down. Well, my legs aren't strong enough. I'm going to go exercise. Why don't you take a brick out of your bag? But we don't think that way. The next thing, all events are first processed by the emotional center of your brain, and it's called the amygdala. All right, big fancy term. It's just one area of your brain. Every bit of information that comes into your brain goes through the amygdala first. And the amygdala's job is to ask, and it really is interesting that it should do this. I understand why. It just asks the question, am I safe? Am I safe? The air pressure changes. Am I safe? Someone comes up behind me and scares me. Am I safe? I eat spaghetti. Am I safe? That's, depends on who made the spaghetti. It is. But honestly, if we're asking this question to every event, based on what you've learned here this last month, and based on your observation of life, would you say that most people are saying, no, I'm not safe? I mean, think about what our culture is promoting. you need to watch your own back. Right. So they're pushing us into accepting that the answer should be no, you're not safe. But that is in direct opposition to the way God designed this thing. I think He wants you to be safe. But to be safe in your mind, you have to understand how it works. Okay? Now, all events in life have the potential to impact the emotional processing. If everything goes into the emotional center first, don't you think that every event has the potential to affect the emotional well-being of the individual? So if the antidepressants are the second most common prescription in the United States, what does that say about how we're processing? We're allowing everything to affect us. And that's why I love that little bit that I did at the beginning, the audio. You know, the anti-social network. All right, I joke when I go into a room, and I need to put up a sign to say it's a cell-free zone, but I'm a little lax on that. And so I see two people in the room, both on cell phones, both punching away. And so my first question, are you having a conversation? Do I need to come back? And then they look up and they just sort of chuckle, and I go, you are in the same room, not 3 feet apart, and you can't have a conversation. Next thing, what about chocolate? Can chocolate affect the emotional center of a body? Oh, absolutely, and everybody's just smiling. There's one person in here that's not smiling. Who's the person that gets the migraines? All right, chocolate gives you migraines. Is it really the chocolate's fault? You know, I laugh about people. We use frequency following technology, which is well, it's not really that new, but it is the way it's being used today. It is based on an algorithm, and it has little blinky lights. And these blinky lights actually will cause your brain to go to a certain frequency. And by doing that, we can actually modulate the frequencies in the brain, and we can show you what your brain is supposed to do. We can walk your brain from fully alert to almost dead asleep, back to fully alert, back to almost dead asleep, and then we can stop wherever we want to. Like, for instance, if we want to de-stress the body, when we finish doing this, we will leave you in a low-frequency state. And so when you come off these glasses, you're just like a dish rag. If you want to be super focused, then we leave you at this high realm, high activity, which is the thing that I use every morning when I go to work. It's almost every morning I will do a session so that my brain is sharp. All right, because people ask me questions, and they joke at the office, they call it Dr. Google. It's like they're always trying to stump me with something, but the thing is I keep my brain so sharp that I can field these questions, and it doesn't cause an undue amount of tension. What about music? We did a study. I guess you can't call it a study. We did an experiment, and it was with my oldest son when he was younger. I wanted to know what music did to your brain. All right? I had read some studies about it, but I wanted to see firsthand, since I have an EEG machine, so I can hook you up and I can watch your brain as you're listening to music. You want to guess at which style of music is the worst? Rap. You want to know what the next one is? Country music.
Wait a minute, I want to see that.
We can do it.
I want to see the stats.
It absolutely affects your brain in a very negative manner. All right? Music is powerful.
The words on it?
The lyrics and the beat, the rhythm, all of it put together. It just compounds it. What about love and fear? We talked about fear today in Sunday school. All right? With Jacob and Esau. And how Jacob acted. And to me, he was acting because everything that he was doing was based on fear. And so he was constantly trying to win back. Even though he said, hey, it's okay, dude. Drop it. And he was like, no, I can't. And that's the way we act. We have a hard time forgiving ourselves. And the reason is because of that question that our sweet little amygdala is asking. Am I safe? No, you're not. So you have to do these things to win favor. Well, why don't you just change the message up there and say, hey, yes, I am safe. You know, without efficient recovery skills, the answer to the question is always, it comes out to be no. And when it is no, does that change your physiology? Absolutely. And here's one, we'll just throw out these things. The amygdala says no. And so it sends the signal down to the limbic region of your brain into the hippocampus, into this area of the brain that's the primitive section of the brain, and that's what controls a lot of our fight or flight mechanisms. And that triggers the fight or flight mechanism, and that when that happens, your hands get ice cold and your feet get cold, your breathing becomes shallow, all right, which triggers a lot of pro-inflammatory enzymes to be dumped into the bloodstream, and that causes irritation in your bloodstream, and your body needs to patch that so it increases cholesterol production. Cholesterol production and stress? Yes, cholesterol production and stress. All right, and so we have all of these things happening, and you go to the doctor and they do a blood test and they go, oh, well, you know, your cholesterol's high, your blood pressure's high, this is high, this is high. We're going to drop that down. But the process that caused it is still in effect. And so management of conditions, while it may be necessary in the short term, was never designed to become status quo. But we're using it that way. And that's why we have people having problems. But our science was never designed to explain the system of systems. Okay? Our capacity becomes overwhelmed, and that's just what I was talking about. Our physiologies change. We have symptoms that start to manifest, and then we go to the doctor and we try to control the symptoms. But in none of this was the question of why ever asked. So when you are faced with these things, ask yourself, why? Why do I have this? Why is this happening? And put all of these things together. And if you need help, there's doctors like myself that I trained all over the world. We can help. But I truly believe that doctoring is going to go full circle. Instead of being a pure technician, it's going to go back to the way doctoring was originally. And it was about teaching. Okay? Next slide. Emotional stress versus emotions. Let's talk about some emotions. Love, fear, happy, sad, anger, melancholy. And then I put these two up here. Questions. Is joy an emotion? Or is it the result of an emotion? It's the result. What about depression? Depression is a condition that's the end product of a process. So joy is a condition that is the end product of a process. Right? That's the way this works. But in our country, in our culture, we have people walking around talking about, oh, well, that depresses me. No, it doesn't. Okay. That has no power over you. Your depression is the result of how you process that thing. And so it is fully yours. And if you don't want it, then change the way you process. Emotional stress. Emotional stress is internal tension. That's all it is. Internal tension, it results from the inability to recover effectively from processing events. Now, I'm going to step on some toes. Let's talk about hormone replacement. I was asked this, matter of fact, this past week we were talking about it. Hormone replacement. Did God design all human beings to maintain the same level of hormones throughout their whole life? Yeah, no. Okay? No. So why do we have this idea that we need to do it? Well, come on, be serious. Well, hot flashes. I'm having hot flashes. Well, you're having hot flashes because your hormones are changing. No, that is not why you're having hot flashes. You're having hot flashes because you can't process your hormones changing. God designed you to do it. Because honestly, if hot flashes were due to hormones, wouldn't every woman have hot flashes? And that's just not the way it is. But we accept that answer. And the reason why is because in the science that's used to come up to that conclusion, it's logical. But the science is wrong. Okay? What about taxes? Whew, we just got through with that. Now, and I have a lot of accountants that come in, corporate and commercial accountants. And you talking about stressed out people? Oh my gosh. But there's one lady, do I? Yeah. There's one lady that during the tax time, she has all of these physiological events happening in her life. And it's a pattern. Every year it happens. Every year it happens. And so she goes, oh, I'm getting ready to go into tax season. Here comes all these problems. And I'm thinking, what if you were able to go through tax season and you didn't have those problems? What would you do then? And that's exactly right. She goes, I would not act. And I go, well, you want to find out? And she went, yeah. And I went, okay, here's what we're going to do. And so we did this as she prepared and went through tax season. And at the end of tax season, when I saw her last week, she went, this was totally different. And I said, was it different in a good way or a bad way? And she goes, oh, much better, much better. And I said, how's your sleeping? She goes, it's great. I go, are you getting up in the middle of the night going to the bathroom? No. What's your energy like when you wake up? Well, I have a lot of energy. And I said, how's your focus at work? She goes, oh, it's great. I go, do you have to drink as much coffee or soda pops and that kind of stuff? She goes, no, I don't think I've had any. And I went, isn't that the way it's supposed to be? And she thought for a minute. She goes, you know what? That's right. And I go, we have accepted less. And we consider it the normal. You know, my wife and I, we're oddities because we don't take meds. And so when you go to the doctor's visit or you're having a procedure or something you have to do, and they say, list your meds, and you go, N.A., and they go, really? I mean, you don't take anything? Well, how odd. You know, my response to something like that was to ask, well, do you take any? Oh, yeah. Oh, how odd. All right, relationships was the other thing that we talked about in Sunday school today. Relationships have the ability to impact you very heavily. But is it really that person? Was it really me causing my mother's blood pressure to go up? No, even though I was trying. She would say, well, from heaven she would say, you know, I don't know, Rich. But it's not about that. It's about how we recover from that event. And if we can teach people how to lay things down, how to recover in a very efficient manner, we can actually change, you name it. And it can change. Next thing, these are corrective measures. Awareness. This is the thing that I'm pushing constantly. This is one of those little gems. We live in a society that does not recognize the importance of recovery. Would you agree? Have you ever heard anyone talking about stuff like this before? And see, and that's the question I ask when I speak in front of doctors. And I go, all right, docs, have you ever heard a doc talking about stuff like this? And they go, no. And I go, did you hear it in college? No. Did you hear it in postgraduate work? No. Did you hear it in your certification courses? No. And I go, isn't that odd? We need to be talking about these issues because we need to have awareness of really how God designed this thing. The next thing is this, capacity and stress load. You know, I talk about the fact that life comes down to an issue of capacity and stress load. God gave you the capacity to do things, but He allowed you to manage that. And I really believe that He wanted you to constantly replenish your capacity. But that's not what people do. And so I have this glass, it's actually a video of this glass being filled up. And then I cover up part of the glass with this black piece of paper. And I go, you don't know how much, even though the water's going in, how much water is in the glass? They don't know. Not until the water gets above the black paper. And I go, that's what it's like in life. And I go, you don't know that your capacity is overwhelmed until you have symptoms. But in our culture, you don't equate the symptoms with the issue of capacity. You think it's the symptom's fault. Well, I have allergies. Well, it's the allergen. Well, I have this. Well, it's that. No. The problem is that you forgot to unload your water out of the glass so that you had more capacity. And we are supposed to do this every day. Every day. You know, remember we talking about rocking chairs? This is a side note. Walmart's got rocking chairs for $65. All right? I saw them the other day. So there's no reason why you can't go get a rocking chair. All right? Capacity and stress load. Exercise. In this culture, we think about exercise as being the answer to everything. However, we have people in the top of their life physically dying of heart attacks. So it makes absolutely no sense. And then, of course, that study I talked about, you know, where they were talking about the people in Greece, the centurions, and they don't exercise. All right? They just don't. Okay? Now, if you go and you look at a Tai Chi master, or if you go look at a yoga master, are they really physically fit like we think of it in this country? No, not at all. All right? But they are in the prime of their life, even when they are 70, 80, and 90 years old. Okay? So we have to change the way we think. Exercise is good if you use it for the right thing. If you're trying to exercise for the reactive system, what you're doing is you're burning trash. Now, how many people have heard, or you may have experienced it, you go and work out and you feel so much better after you work out? Well, do you think you could get addicted to that? That's the reason why I don't exercise. But you can, and I have heard over and over again, oh, I have to exercise. And I go, why? And I go, oh, well, it makes me feel so good. And I go, do you really think that the exercise is what's making you feel good? Or is it burning the trash off in your system? It's burning the trash. But isn't the problem the process that's putting the trash there? So why don't we change the process so you don't have as much trash and you don't have to work out as hard, and then you can live your life a little differently? It just takes a different way of thinking. Recovery exercises. This is one of the things that I gave you here tonight. The book that I promised at the beginning, I have it there for you. These are all different strategies you can use to exercise your recovery system. And by exercising your recovery system, what it does is it allows your body and your mind to return to a steady state. All right, that steady state is called allostatic balance. Allostatic balance is not the same thing as homeostatic balance. Homeostatic balance this is an example. What is the normal heart rate supposed to be? What do you hear? 72 beats a minute. All right. How do you maintain 72 beats a minute and live your life? You can't. All right. So heartbeat, there is no homeostatic state in heartbeat. It is a range. It goes up, it goes down. When you breathe in, your heart rate goes up. When you breathe out, it goes down. All right? When you're driving on the parkway, it goes up. When you get off on the parkway, hopefully it goes down. Okay? All right, but it also allows your mind to return to a resting state, which allows it to be fully focused on the next event. This is about putting things down. And we're going to teach you how to do that in just a moment. And the last thing to understand is that the body always follows where the mind has gone. If your mind is on the last event, as you present yourself to the next event, you're not giving that event 100% of who you are. What if it's a relationship? You're not giving yourself 100% to the relationship. What if it's a plate of spaghetti? You're not giving yourself 100% to the plate of spaghetti. Anything in life, you really need to be at 100%. And the way you do that is by exercising the recovery system. We live in a world now, it's called super stress. All right? And that was what that little audio clip was about in the beginning. I heard that. I loved it. I bought it, and so I could play that. But that is a marvelous little rap. Okay? But when you think about all the people sitting at home on their computers late at night, acting as if they're having a conversation, looking at their likes as if it is defining their self-image. These are all very, very negative effects on the human psyche and causes an enormous amount of emotional stress. So having boundaries in dealing with those kind of things, I believe, would be a very good thing. And so we need to start teaching boundary making in school. Maybe we can do that. Next thing, conditions are the end product of processes. That's one of those little gems. It is always the end product of a process. I had a doctor say, well, okay, well, what about a genetic disorder? And I go, okay, well, medicine says or science says that mutations are the result of stress at a cellular level. All right, and if stress is the end product of a process, then wouldn't a mutation be the end product of a process? And the answer is yes. So I go, is there really any condition that doesn't have a process in front of it? I haven't found one. Judgment. Whew. Judgment leads to social and medical acceptance. This is the thing that I talk about. If everyone has high blood pressure, isn't it normal? No. If everyone has reflux, isn't it normal? No. If everyone has thyroid problems, is it normal? None of this is normal. But we are constantly being inundated by our media, by the medical system, to accept it. You know, it's part of, what did I hear last week from a patient? It's part of the aging process. And I went, what? That is a load of, How can it be how can it be part of the aging process? I see patients that are in their 20s that have that issue. So they're just old for their age. I have people that are 90 years old that don't have that issue. So how can it be part of the aging process? That is a stab at trying to get you to accept less than what you deserve, which is the answer. And if my science cannot come up with the answer to your question, then I'm going to pass it off. And the ultimate pass off, in my opinion, in medicine today is it's all in your head. Because the irony of that is it is. But they don't realize it. They just pass you off. So judgment is a leading contributor to social victimization. This is something that I teach. I truly believe that we live in a culture that is full of victims. We need victims because of fear. The industry of healthcare needs victims because healthcare is presenting itself as a champion. And all victims, all through cultures, all through history, required a champion. But that is a very poor way of looking at this industry of health care. I mean, we pledge to help people. We literally signed an oath to do it. But our science doesn't support it. And so what we do is we just, it's just normal. It's part of the aging process. Well, everybody gets that. No, that's a lack of understanding. Next thing, every expression. This is the biggie, all right? This is a biggie. When I wrote this one to the doctors and I shared that with them, everything just got really silent for a moment. And I went, and it never even crossed my mind. And then I read it again, and then I read it again. And then I went, oh, okay, I get it. The expression of a condition is a major red flag to alert us to the need to address a process. When you have a condition that sends you to the doctor, that is a red flag that you need to address a process. Do you also need to address the red flag? Well, absolutely. But what you have lost is this whole idea that there is a process that even needs to be addressed. Because if I give you a drug or if a doctor gives you a medication that reduces your symptoms to the level that you're really not aware that it's there, what do you think about the process? It's gone. Is it? No, it's not. And so we have really duped you into thinking that we gave you health care in a pill. And it's not. Well, I don't know that it's easier. I mean, it's not health care. It's crisis management. But every time you have something, you should look at this issue. Look at the process that's underlying the problem. Always. Processes always precede conditions, and that's what we talked about earlier. All right, talking about exercising. These are some of the really basic exercises. This is the kind of exercising I like. Walk. Right. You can break a sweat doing this, I'm telling you. Walking around barefoot in your yard. All right, it is phenomenal. Now, if you know anyone who has children that are dealing with this condition, ADD, ADHD, Asperger's, spectrum, all of that, if you have them walk barefoot in the yard, it changes. All right, and that came to me from a doctor friend of mine who is a pediatric neurodevelopmental specialist over in Atlanta. And so that's the thing that she has them do. Walk around barefoot in the yard because of the grounding effect that the electromagnetic fields of the earth have on your body. And if you wear tennis shoes or rubber, then of course you're insulating yourself from that. So walk barefoot. The next thing she has them do is she always has them exercise on a treadmill right before they try to learn something. And that helps dramatically too. The other thing is nature. Walking around outside, focusing on sounds, smells, and sights. This is the one big exercise I use for people that are cognitive processors. These are people that have tension in their neck, shoulders, and their head. These are people that have high blood pressure. They suffer from heart disease. They have TMJ issues. All right, that's the kind of person this is. And so they can't turn their mind off at night. You know who they are. I mean, you may be one of them. All right. One of the best things that you can do is to go walk at night and pick something. Focus on sounds. How many different sounds can you name? How many different smells can you name? How many different objects? Like, for instance, we look for different things. How many different kinds of birds do you see? The idea is to get the mind off of its, what is that called, the hamster wheel. Get it focused on something that's more abstract. And then the repetitive nature of the walk unloads the tension. So it's a real simple exercise that's highly effective for cognitive processors. For emotional processors, what do? Rock in a rocking chair. And Walmart's got them for $65. Okay? The next thing is this, boundaries. This is a biggie in my office. Boundaries. We need to develop boundaries. How do you do that? How do you teach your mind how to have a boundary? Well, it's not that difficult. If you understand that there's three things that you do, you engage things, you recognize it, you deal with it, and you let it go. Okay? What's the one problem that we have? We don't let go. So how do I teach my mind to let go? I joke, and I've used this before in the class, and it's this. You get up in the morning, and for those of you who have hair, you brush your hair, and you put the brush down, and you walk through the house, and the first mirror you go by, you look in the mirror to check your hair. And I'm like, what'd you do that for? You were standing in front of a mirror when you brushed your hair in the beginning. Now, you physically put the brush down, but mentally you didn't because you were checking your work. And how many mirrors does it take to walk by before you accept the fact, okay, it looks all right? Now, that is telling you flat out you did not disengage. So we need to exercise, what? We need to exercise disengagement. Well, here's how you do it. Okay, so I'm going to have to amend my statement with the fact that your hair looks different in different lighting. Okay, let me check from this side. Now I can check from this side. That pretty much covers it. Okay. That was a good one. All right, focus on the unconscious parts of this. Like, for instance, here's an easy one. When you brush your hair, you put the brush down and you say the words. That's done. You take a breath in and you breathe out twice as long as you breathe in. Why do you do those things? Well, words have power. They have volition. Speak over your troubles. All right, we're all taught that. When you breathe out twice as long as you breathe in, you are activating the recovery mechanism. So if I activate the recovery mechanism and I tell it to let go, guess what happens? It lets go. So when you brush your teeth, have you ever brushed your teeth with the other hand? It just gets all over the place. Yeah, it does. Why? Because you have wired your brain with this way. It's an unconscious event. So you take that unconscious event because it goes into the deep recesses of the head, and you add a command, and then you activate the recovery mechanism. So you brush your teeth. When you put the brush down, you say, that's done. When you put your shoes on, that's done. When you open the refrigerator and then you shut it, that's done. You drink a glass of water, that's done. When you pick up your keys, that's done. When you put the keys in the ignition, that's done. These breaks will reset how your brain works. It's amazing, but it absolutely works. We took the group in the office, we took 10 people with 10 different conditions. We asked them if they wanted to participate in a little experiment, and they said yes. And so they all had different things, and we all had them do the same thing, which was this strategy. But they had to agree that they would do it between 50 and 100 times a day. The reason why I left such a big gap is because I needed them to do it at least 40 times. And so I said 50 to 100, and I got 40 out of them. All right? So doing this 40 times a day totally reset their brains. And guess what? All 10 of these people with 10 different conditions said at the end of the month, everything was changed. Everything. You named their condition, it was different. And all they did was reset this thing. Because your condition is the result of a process. And if I can change the way you process, I can ultimately change the condition. It's almost too simple. And that's probably why it's so difficult to comprehend. But most things that are important really are simple, okay? The last thing is this: practice, practice, practice. Frequency, time. Frequency and time. If you want to change something, you have to practice frequency and time. If you want to be a great bowler, it takes frequency and time. If you want to learn a foreign language, it takes frequency and time. If you want to be an excellent spelling bee contestant, it takes frequency and time. If you want to change the way your brain works, it takes frequency and time. That's all it is. That's it. Okay? Good. The last part of this is a piece that I do for the doctors. I normally show a video, but I'm just going to tell the story. And hopefully we can wrap everything together in this story. It's a fish story. A fish story. You like fish tales. So it's these two small fish swimming around in a bowl. And they swim up to this older fish, and the older fish turns and looks at the two younger fish and says, "Morning, boys. How's the water?" Two small fish go on swimming around the bowl. And then finally one of the small fish turns to the other one and goes, "What the heck is water?" The point of the fish story is merely that the most obvious and important realities are generally the hardest ones to see and talk about. If you put it into an English sentence, it's called a banal platitude. And there are banal platitudes that invade every aspect of human existence. And most of these have life or death consequences. Everything that we have been talking about this month are banal platitudes. All right? The human body is a nonlinear system of systems. Reductionistic science does not appreciate nor understand how this system of systems work. So therefore, it's been relegated to the treatment of a disease. Health care is not disease care. Health is not the absence of a disease. Health is the expression of a process, just like ill health is the expression of a process. God gave you the ability to change processes. He expects you to do it. It's your choice. You don't have to. You can go on and keep doing exactly what you're doing, and you will not change anything. But if we can change the way people think, then we have done our job. Because years ago, I said, I want to change the generational cycle of sickness. And that is how we think. And by doing that, we can change the expression of the human spirit. And it's done by simple awareness. Simple awareness. Any questions? We actually have 11 minutes now. Yes?
So you actually, like, for instance, I'm battling deteriorating disc in my back, so basically.
Right? Why?
That's actually, for you, that's actually, the way you're talking, that's actually a symptom of the process.
Absolutely. Because are all your discs degenerating? Why not? If the problem's with the disc, they're all the same. Right?
And I'm really leaning toward that because I've been under a lot of stress for the last 3 weeks of this vaccine. So
Right.
you're making a lot of sense.
Yeah. But see that simple little question of why? It's the simple awareness about life that really tells the story. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Not really a question, but one of the tips that we gave to what we ADHD reminded me of reflexology, and also reminded me of something I read or heard in a workshop that the ending of nerve all organs are in the cell. So if you're walking, what I need to say is I really need that walking is good for us.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Now, it's interesting you say that all the nerve endings are in the feet, which is the whole notion in Chinese acupuncture. They also say that all the nerve endings are actually in your ear. Okay? So walking and listening is much more important than speaking. Unless you say, I'm done. Okay. I got 9 minutes and I'm done. All right? Yes. The question was about the fact that you have all these nerve endings in your feet that communicate to all the meridians in and all the organs in the human body. And so that also helps you understand the importance of walking around barefoot so that you can stimulate all of these organs. And then I made the comment, you also have all of those in your ear. And so hearing and walking are much more important than talking until you're done. All right. Yes, sir.
So you listed the bad music. What was the good music?
Oh, the good music, instrumental music, all right, with no words. If you think about it, the words are triggering certain frequencies in your head, which are higher frequencies, and we typically want to use music to calm you down. And so what we don't want is to try to calm you down and jack you up at the same time. So any instrumental music, some of the best music out there we use for babies, believe it or not, is Mozart's, all right? The concertos, the violin concertos that are out there are great. There's a whole series on guitar, classical guitar, which is called Guitar Masters. That is phenomenal. You can go right down here to Bed Bath & Beyond, and they have CDs that actually have, they're designed to stimulate theta frequencies, relaxing frequencies, and also delta, which are sleeping frequencies. And those are pretty good. They use binaural sounds and neurolinguistic programming on it, along with the music. Very similar to Centerpoint's work back in the 1990s. Somebody else had a question right up here. Yeah.
Two things. When you talk about walking in the grass with your bare feet,
Right.
sometimes it depends on which yard you're walking in. You don't want to walk in my backyard.
Oh.
On the other hand, you were talking to me a couple of weeks ago about going from office to office, and you said you do a process
Right.
between the office,
Right.
and it just
Right. Like, for instance, what he was asking about was something that I do in my practice because I have two rooms that I work out of. And so I go from this room to this room to this room, back and forth 50 to 100 times a day. And so what do? When I walk out of that room, when I hit the halfway point between that room and the next room, I mentally will stop and now go. It's the same thing that I try to get people to do. We joke about going to the grocery store. If I go to the grocery store, when I get to the end of the aisle, I stop. And then I go. Why? Because this needs to be routine, frequency, and time. Are you ever going to get into a situation where there is less stressors? No. And it's becoming more and more and more. They call it super stress. So you have to practice this routinely. It has to be part of your lifestyle. It cannot be a treatment, because treatment is a product of that science that can't even explain this. So don't use it as that. This is something that's part of who you are. I let go. That's what I do. So practice. If this one lady, we tried to find something that was routine in her life, in her daily routine. And so she did purchase orders. And I said, how many do you do? She goes, over 50 a day. And I go, okay, well, then every PO that you do, at the end of that PO, you stop, take your hands off the keyboard, and you say, that's done. You add those 3 seconds is all that's necessary. And if you will do this after every PO, you won't have to crash on the weekends to try to recover from what your job did to you. And she did it. Guess what? It works. Find something that's routine in your life. Okay? Any other questions? We got 4 minutes. Yes, ma'am. Trigeminal neuralgia. I love that one. All right. Yeah. Do you ever wonder why people, trigeminal neuralgia, they talk about people grinding their teeth. All right? Or their TMJ will lock up, all right, or they will have irritation. Now you're talking about pure irritation to the trigeminal nerve. Right. Okay. Now the only one, I did have a case where we actually had them go have a surgery, all right, because they actually had an impingement on the trigeminal nerve due to a bone growth under the base of their skull. And so we had to get rid of that. But the other trigeminal neuralgia issues, if the trigeminal nerve, which is a cranial nerve, it's one of the nerves, it's cranial nerve number 5, comes off your head. All right, if it's irritated, there is a process that's irritating it. Just like I said with that gentleman. The process that was irritating his trigeminal nerve was the fact that he had a small little bone tumor that had grown, and it was putting pressure on the trigeminal nerve. But you have to find the process. Most people, that's not what happens. What happens is they have some kind of malfunction with the muscles that go from the jaw to the back of the head, and they wind up constantly irritating the trigeminal nerve. Okay? This is very similar to somebody that has Bell's palsy when they develop that. I worked with a gentleman in Chicago when I was at the research center, and when you get Bell's palsy, you get the droopy eye and the mouth droop and the whole thing, and they put you off work for 2 or 3 months. Well, he came in, it was like a Thursday night, and we sent him home Sunday, he was 100%. Because we went after the process that was causing the irritation that caused the nerve to shut down. Remove the process, everything goes away. So there's a lot that can be done with trigeminal neuralgia. You really have to understand what the process is in front of it. Okay? But this is a good question. That sort of led me. I was going to talk about this, and I forgot. Why is it that we always grind our teeth at night? Why don't people grind their teeth in the day? Do what? Build up. Really? And so why would it happen at night? Because you're lowering your defenses at night. Your breathing goes from shallow to more abdominal. You're closing your eyes so you're not constantly surveying the world and trying to protect yourself. And so when you do that, all this emotional tension happens, and then it causes you to grind your teeth. But here's the thing that they really don't talk about. The 2 nerves that run to your jaw, the facial nerve and the trigeminal nerve, cranial nerve 5 and 7, these actually have an inhibitory effect over the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is cranial nerve 12, and that's what really houses your recovery system. And so if it has an inhibitory effect over the recovery system, that is the most efficient way of me staying on guard as I go to sleep. So when you address that process, guess what happens? It goes away. Okay? It goes away. We have 1 minute and 23 seconds. Anybody have any other questions? I will make sure I'm on time. Yes, ma'am.
Last week you talked about
Purified water is run through filters, all right, and it can be tap water. And they run it through filters to remove contaminants out of it. Spring water is artesian water that is filtered by the earth, and you have minerals still in the spring water, all right, which means that the spring water actually is going to be more alkaline in nature than purified water. And that's the reason why what I said last week was that Deer Park was 7.8 and Dasani was 6 point something. All right, Dasani is a purified water. All right, well, I am going to say goodnight. I truly enjoyed this. This was a treat for me. Thank you, guys. And I really hope that you at least learned how to ask the question, why? Because that is the most important question. And from one goldfish to another, I hope you do well. Let's close in prayer. Father God, thank you for a wonderful month. Thank you for enlightening us with your importance and how important it is for us to take care of what you gave us, which is our body. Father, thank you for the opportunity that you afforded me to come and facilitate this discussion. And I just pray that there will be a special blessing and a hedge of protection around each participant here tonight. Thank you again for all that you do, and we pray all these things in your Son's name, Jesus. Amen. Okay.
You've been listening to Bullpen Science with Dr. Richard Aplin. To learn more about real health solutions to your real health problems, call us at 256-203-9433 or visit us online at envisionchiropractic.com today.